right, guys, welcome back to another episode.
No, you did.
Oh my god, you're doing the same exact thing again.
You don't have to. He just punches Mike. That was awesome. His mic just goes flying.
You just did the same
All right.
thing three
All right,
times in a
guys,
row.
Another episode of War with the Boys. No?
All right, it's been a minute since we've done a podcast, so
Oh god.
Fucking same shit.
we're back.
What are we talking about?
We're back. We're gonna talk a little MCU
good
today.
topic.
We got a lot of new trailers out. What
does MCU stand for, Scott?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don't get that confused with the Marvel Universe, which exists in comics, which is utterly confusing. The MCU is basically, well, used to be Iron Man until still Spider-Man basically, but the beginning of the MCU, I guess, is potentially up for change with, the new Doctor Strange movie. So I figured let's just sit and like throw our thoughts all together on like the MCU as a whole, like what we think are some of like good theories going forward for like Doctor Strange and some of these other movies, and then like just our thoughts on if something like this is actually like a good thing, because actually a lot of people that think like the idea of the MCU is cool, but like that it's actually hurting like the movie and film industry in general because of like how big and how stringing on it is. It's like eliminating other things but being able to compete. But it's like, I don't know. Before we just jump into that, like, I don't know. Like,
I think we should start. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we should start with Loki. I mean, I feel like that show kind of started all the branching off.
Well, basically, we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which we started off on the X-Men series, and that's really a big one that launched off the series itself, but it was on a different brand. Avengers is where everyone thought that's the makeup of everything, but it actually started from X-Men. Actually, no. If we go way back, it starts from Blade.
Well, no,
that's
technically.
That's the thing. That's what we're trying to talk about. Because technically, right now, we don't know for sure if X-Men movies are in the MCU. So,
all right, so
basically, to add on to, so before you get into the next part, like Doctor Strange trailer just dropped. The second trailer just dropped recently, and Patrick Stewart was like basically confirmed, not like 100%, but he's basically confirmed. But we don't know if he is playing Professor X. So we assume he's playing Professor X, and if he is, it adds all of the X-Men movies into like the canon of the MCU, but potentially as other universes. But that is not confirmed yet. Even if we confirm it's him, we do not know if he's playing Xavier and if anything has to do with X-Men. We're assuming, but we don't know for sure yet until the movie comes out.
So basically, a lot of the trailers that they show us could be true, but certain parts are basically hidden.
Yeah, they could edit the trailer and remove stuff.
Yeah, so they edited the trailers in a way that makes you think that it's going to go that way, but in a way when you actually be totally different, because they really want you to get.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's standard movie trailer scenario. Yeah. Like they're going to change it, and they're going to show you glimpses of things to make it exciting. But
they're the first ones to introduce more editing parts. Honestly, in all my times in watching movies, trailers. That this is the first that actually kind of like we gotcha.
Well, because I think it's the first situation. It's the first that it even matters. Like no one would give a shit if like in another like if you're watching some like rom-com and it's like they edit some guy walking down the street and he's not there. Then in the movie you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that guy was walking there. Like it would serve no purpose. Like there's like thrillers, but like if you have like a thriller commercial, you typically just like show suspenseful stuff. Like you don't really need to do it. Like I feel like the idea of like comic book level movies and movies that are like create their own universes, kind of like a Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, those are where you can get like spicy with the trailers and like, kind of like fib a little bit to like make it more exciting. But I feel like that's new because like movies just didn't really need that back in the day. Like I can't think of anything outside of like comic level movies or like those other ones that would even matter. Otherwise it would just be like
Marvel's like the tip of the iceberg connecting movies together because no one else has actually ever done that ever.
because there's no
to
reason
actually connect the universes of
Yeah,
Yeah.
besides like
So-
one, like 2 or 3 off movies, like with sequels, but like not,
Yeah.
they're not sequels. I'm like not
Mhm.
like they're just continuations of the same thing. That's the thing. That's like the difference.
yeah.
Like they have like Iron Man 1 and 2 and like that, but like the Marvel
Yeah.
movies as a whole aren't like sequels.
But that's the thing. It's like Marvel owns all of that property, so it's like they're finding a way to like connect it because it's technically all
Mhm.
their content. Like, there's no other like movie out there that just has like that much freaking content. Like, you know,
Yeah.
even if you look at something like The Witcher, it's like a ton of books, but it's like they have a show, but like, could they have like side series? Like maybe, I guess, like if there's other characters or something like that. But like, comic books just are so big. Like the Marvel universe and the DC universe, from a comic standpoint, are just like literally the biggest like lore universes like there is, because there's just so much freaking content. So like, they just have a massive library, and now they're like starting to like use it to mold this massive universe with the shows and everything.
Mhm.
Yeah. A lot of it.
And that's our thoughts, ladies and gentlemen.
No. I didn't want to go way back, but thanks to
Well, let's.
to Avengers.
All right. Well, I think we're just kind of like talking random here. So like, if we think of like the MCU, like what? I guess first question would be like, what do you think was the first movie that like you understood that there was like an MCU kind of thing? Because like, yeah, obviously you saw Iron Man. It's like, oh, Iron Man 2. It's like Thor, I guess. Like, I mean, for me, just to answer my own question real quick, is like probably like Christian's like Avengers, because it's like the first massive like assembling movie. You know what I mean? Of like all these other characters, and like that really hasn't, like, there's been like, you know, cameos, I guess, in other movies, but like Avengers was like crazy when it first came out, like for what it did. I think. I don't know, what do you guys think? Is like, do you agree? That was like the MCU was like defined by the Avengers 1, basically.
Yeah, and then I forget the name of the movie, but the one with Star-Lord and all that. What the hell's the name?
Guardians.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I feel like after I watched Avengers and then like Guardians, I kind of feel like it started to put some shit together for me.
Yeah, I mean, Guardians definitely like widened the scale as far as like how big the MCU would be, because it's just like, oh, now there's space. Before it was just like Earth. Now it's like there's this whole space that's like infinite.
So a lot of it is Guardians did start off with space. I feel like Eternals kind of broadened that horizon, because Guardians, because it was certain areas.
Well, it's touched on those characters. The Eternals are like a bigger, broader character, but like from an MCU standpoint, like you didn't wait till the Eternals came out to be like, wow, the MCU. Like,
Yeah,
I'm saying like early on, it was like when you watched like, I mean, how many movies was it? Like 4 or 5 before Avengers? It was like Iron Man 1 and 2, Thor 1, maybe 2, Captain America the first one. Like,
well, space. If anything, was space that started it all. Like, pretty much started out from Earth was Thor.
Well, no, I'm not talking about space. I'm talking about like the idea of like the MCU. Like when you watch Iron Man 1, you're just watching an Iron Man movie. You're not like, oh, look at this is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You're just watching a superhero movie. You watch Thor, it's like a superhero movie. Captain America, it's Captain America movie. But it's like Avengers, I feel, was like, whoa, now it's like a universe. Because before it was just like movies with like, oh, you know, what's his name? Nick Fury. Oh, he's in the end of it. It's like before Avengers, it was just a bunch of like superhero movies independently. But then Avengers itself was like the idea that now there's like an MCU. There's no universe with just independent movies. The universe is like once those movies now have like connections. And I feel like since then they've like just blown up. I feel like that was like the groundbreaking, like do or die kind of thing. Like if Avengers somehow like flopped and like just didn't work well together, I felt like it would have just completely crushed like the idea. They might have done a bunch of more singles, but like the whole like connecting probably wouldn't have worked as well.
Because DC tried to do a similar situation, but they did it after the whole Avengers situation, because they're like, oh, look at this success that Avengers had. Let's give it a try and try to rush things.
So they rushed it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought all their movies leading up to Justice League were good, and even Justice League, I thought I enjoyed it. It's just I agree, like they should have waited until all the characters that were in the Justice League had their own things. Like they should have had a Flash movie. They should have had a Cyborg movie, and like took their time getting there. But they, they wanted to jump on the superhero wagon, and while good, they just like they didn't do themselves any justice by having like 2 movies and then having a huge, massive movie together, and people just didn't have like the interest in those characters just yet. Versus like Marvel, you had like 5 or 6 movies, and then it was like now there's an Avengers. Like you were more invested.
The storyline.
Well, like,
So
go ahead.
in on all honesty, from all 4 of us, what is your first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie if you ever seen?
Iron Man 1.
Yeah, that's probably like the first one, Iron Man.
I definitely saw it in theaters. I don't know. Did I see it with you, Tim? I don't remember. I mean, that's technically still the official
Wow. Probably
first
not in theaters.
Iron Man movie. Like, I definitely saw it in theaters, I believe, but that's the first MCU movie. And I said
Mostly the same as well. Well, no, never mind. Because Hulk really didn't.
that wasn't even like in that universe.
Yeah,
Not yet.
but the one with Edward Norton, kind of
technically is in the universe, but
Technically,
like,
yeah,
it
in the
wasn't
universe,
when they
but-
filmed it.
Yeah,
But
but the ending did have.
you don't know who
Iron Man?
Edward Norton is?
Nope.
He played
Yeah.
See, I did good there, by the way.
Hulk
Yeah,
in like the previous Hulk movies before Mark
You
Ruffalo
said
did.
the second Hulk.
He was in Fight Club. You ever seen Fight Club?
Nope.
You ever seen Fight
You
Club?
ever seen Fight Club?
I don't watch movies other than Marvel movies.
It's an old movie.
Damn, I can't really. Think
Yeah, it's
of
an old
any
movie. He's
with
been-
Edward Norton. Is it?
Yeah, he's in like American History X. Like I don't know if you ever seen that. It's that's an older movie too.
Nope.
But
Anyways.
he was technically the second Hulk.
Yeah, Eric Bana was the first Hulk a long time ago, which I mean I saw that as well. I enjoyed it, but those are just like one-off movies. Like that movie
Yeah.
did probably worse than like the original Superman movie because they were all just like random one-offs. Like even like the old school Supermans like from in the 50s and stuff like that, they were just like superhero movies. Like there was no idea of like the universe. It was just like, oh, Superman 1. Like, oh, we have enough story to make a Superman 2. It wasn't like, oh my god, Superman connects with like the old school what was his face? Like the original Batman. You know what I mean? Like if they had like the old like Michael Reeves Superman like in a joint movie with like the original like
God.
Batman from back in the day, that would have been like so goofy. You know what I mean? People would have been like, "Oh, this is cool," but it would have been like almost like a comedy, like because they just don't like the old comic styles were very different. Batman was all like weird sound effects and like I don't know. It would have been goofy, but nowadays it just like fits so much better because it's how they can do it.
So going back to the stance of the universe itself, I know me and Scott are more into the comics, but you guys are starting to get more like seeing this whole universe come together. Did you guys get more interested into the comics later on, after or before?
I don't know if I've ever read a comic in my life.
Yeah, I would say I'm not really interested in the comics still.
But
I still
you have-
like
they're
the
probably-
characters.
they're
I've
probably-
always liked the characters.
I think they're more interested in
It's
like the idea of like the what they call lore is like the story,
The
the
lore, yeah.
origin.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
reading it through articles and understanding it, but not necessarily like flipping through pages of a comic book. So
Yeah.
I think that's for a lot of people
Yeah.
too. Like nowadays, everyone's like, Marvel experts, but they literally have only watched Marvel TV shows. They've never like read Marvel published material, which is fine. It's not for everybody, but it's like
Well-
you can learn by watching the movies and then kind of like doing Google research on whatever and be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like I know a little bit about this character. And I feel like a lot of people have gotten to that point where they like really enjoy the characters and the story and like the backstory, not necessarily being like an original comic fan and having something to compare to.
Yeah, I've like, we can talk about stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, like that happened in the comic, but I've never read the comic, but I know it happened because
You read it.
I've read it in other things and like
Yeah,
other
yeah.
videos and explaining stuff, and it's like I'm interested in the universe and the lore and stuff like that, but I just in general, not just Marvel, I'm just not a comic person in general.
Would you
So
ever pick up
I've
one?
always
I've seen people that have never read a comic book in their life and actually seen the movies looked up the lore and like, let's give an event a try, and then they're like, all right, this
I
actually
don't
looks
know.
interesting.
I'm just.
I don't even know how to read, so there's that.
I'm not. Yeah,
Yes.
I just don't like reading in general. So
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that actually
boring.
like hear the audio stuff.
Yeah,
which
but I
is,
feel like it's different.
newer.
I feel like the comic, like for me, if I
Well,
read a
yeah, it's
comic
definitely
book,
different than a book,
I'm not
yeah.
reading
Yeah.
a comic book to like get invested in like the universe. I'm reading a comic book to read that story. So it's kind of like reading a book, but it's like a comic book. It's like it's in the world, but like I'm reading it for that specific story that is related to that comic book. Like where in the movies you're like, oh my god, how does this connect to this? Like where in the comic books, like most of them are in the universe, but they're fairly one-off. Like they don't. Some comic books literally have nothing to do with the rest of the storyline. It's just like one random writer is like, oh, can I write a Justice
there's
League
mostly
comic?
a lot of the
And he's
elements.
just like, what?
That's what I'm saying. Like most of the lore is introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the movies, especially Thor. Thor has a lot of elements from the comics that are brought to life. I'm trying to think of certain events that I would think. Adam
a lot
Warlock
of-
didn't get introduced until later on, but that kind of stinks, honestly, for me.
Yeah, I mean, technically, like, they haven't done anything wrong. They're just like tweaking the
Yeah.
stories slightly,
Which happens. That's what they do in the comics too.
yeah, which is like I think I just talked to
They're
Tim
just
a little bit
making
about
like a
this.
new comic essentially, but just in a movie.
Yeah, like
A different storyline,
For-
which they do in comics all the time. They do a bunch
Yeah.
of different storylines. So
because
it's
this is like a
it's the
big
same
argument
thing.
people have, like, which is different if you like read a book and then they make a movie about the book and it's like completely
Yeah.
different. Like I can get
Yeah.
some arguments there, but for like comic books, the whole idea of comic books is that like one publisher like DC can have tons of artists, tons of writers, and they all interpret their own versions of like characters, and it's like that's cool. Like that's the idea of the comics is like you can have these different stories. But then when they make these movies, there's still people that get so upset that like like the Adam Warlock example that you gave, like he's technically supposed to be the main freaking character in the Infinity storyline with Thanos, and he's not even there until this new Guardians, where who knows what his role will be. So it's like people are like all upset at that, and at the same time that you'd want to see it follow the comics, like the people that are writing the scripts in the movies are the same thing as people writing new comic books. So it's like they're just taking
Yeah.
the characters and putting their own spins on it. And
What the heck is this Adam Warlock thing?
Adam Warlock, he's like one of the most powerful
super strong.
characters in like the MCU. He's like a guy that was like created to be perfect. Like that's literally his like purpose.
Is that his MCU name, or is this the guy who plays him?
No,
Not
his,
Adam Warlock.
his
No,
name
it's
is Adam
just-
Warlock.
So he's the person that's supposed to get everyone from all the universes and actually join forces to fight this one person, which is Thanos.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's a beast. He's like literally one of the strongest like normal characters. Obviously, it's like crazy people, but like as like a physical person, like he's one of the strongest people in the whole universe.
And another part was Ultron. Technically, he was created from Richard Reed.
Yeah.
But
Because they didn't
chose
have the
Iron Man
Fantastic
instead.
Four.
Yeah,
Yeah. But that's the thing.
It,
It's
it
like,
happens.
but it's nice because
It's
they
his own
didn't.
universe.
They didn't like not do a character because like I'm losing this rights to this movie or
They
this
made it
character.
work.
They made it work, and then like now that they have more success, they can kind of like tweak and mold things to like turn it back into like part of the original story, which is like kind of what we're seeing with like we saw with like the Spider-Man movie, and like with Doctor Strange now. It's like they're starting to take all these older like movies that aren't necessarily in the universe, but they're like, oh, why not? Like, we own the rights of it. Let's just like somehow make those movies part of this universe and make the universe even freaking bigger. And all these, and it gives them the ability to then like redo the characters without people like complaining that like, oh, they just keep recasting freaking, whoever, Reed Richards. It's been like all these different guys, and now it's like. It's okay that it
So-
was all those different guys, like with this whole
So the cool
multiverse
thing
thing.
about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they just started like just putting characters together and having their own separate movies, but then they're like, hey, let's expand it a little more. Let's bring other characters that we already created and bring them and say like, oh, we have this massive universe like characters from X-Men and they're already been created. Let's bring it to
All right, but again,
to
you're talking
Marvel.
you're talking speculation. It hasn't happened yet. You're really pushing. You're pushing those X-Men,
no,
and that's
but-
not a thing yet. I know you want it.
But
I know you want it.
I'm saying, but like that's their new thing now because they started like, all right, we got these characters, let's make their separate movies, and they already done it. But they've gotten bigger now, and they're like, let's take this scenario a little bit more wider,
Yeah.
and bring these characters that we already created, that other people created, and bring it to our universe.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, they didn't necessarily have the rights to it. So when they made the original X-Men movie, it was just like, oh, let's make a movie about X-Men. X-Men's a cool comic. Like, they weren't like, how about we make a 700 movie friggin' sequence that all connects to each other? Like, that would have, like, people would have just left the writer's room because it was like, oh my God, that's never going to work. But, like, over time, as it, like, did work, now they are able to do, like, super crazy stuff.
When do you think they did realize that, though? That they were going to do that? Do you think they knew from Iron Man 1 that they were going to...
I was just going to say that.
do that? Because like, they planned so far ahead now, and like everything is connected. Everything fits so good. Like,
I was going to say that because like when I made the comment about X-Men, I was like, oh, they just made an X-Men movie. I was like, oh, it's kind of like what they did Iron Man 1. But I'm like, but in Iron Man 1, did they already have the story of like getting to Avengers? And if they had the story getting to Avengers, technically they may have had some inkling of Thanos, which would have been like, fucking, that's already 20 movies. I mean, maybe they didn't have all the movies, but they had like the overarching storyline on like a whiteboard where it was like, all right, introduce a couple characters. Boom, we're fighting Loki. Loki does whatever. Oh, now this huge guy Thanos. He's gonna be a big guy. Boom, he's at the end, and then we'll fill in the gaps getting there. It's like, I don't know.
Do you think when they start Thanos, they're like, what's our next big step?
They're what?
Let's bring the multiverse.
You just
at that point, I feel like when they were already at Thanos, they already planned pretty far ahead because they know like at that point they're already pretty set in doing all these crazy movies and everything. Like they already know like we're in the long game like now. But like when they first started, I feel like they didn't necessarily know.
I agree. I feel like it's based on like the characters because if they pull in a character like someone like Doctor Strange or like Wanda, like they have to know that person is involved in the idea of like multiverse. So it's like they would have never brought in like Doctor Strange if they had never wanted to like touch this stuff. But like when they brought him in, they're like, okay, like how are we gonna like make him work? And they're like, oh, what if we just like fucking blow it out of the water?
Like the first Avengers, if they didn't have it by then, that probably would have started everything.
I feel like they knew before that
because Thanos was in the first Avengers. He was the secret scene.
I think they knew before.
Yeah, he was, but it wasn't the same one.
It wasn't Josh Brolin. So, but they still had the story, like Tim was saying.
They knew where they were gonna go.
They knew
they had a starting point.
They knew his name was Thanos and that he was like the ultimate big bad. Even if they didn't have the actor cast, which is like the last thing they need is to film it as the actor, but like they can have the story written.
But like, I wonder, it's crazy that
I feel like they knew. Hold on.
It was crazy that how would they know? What would they do after? And then eventually, like Scarlet Witch was technically still an X-Men, but they're like, oh, we have to adjust the story because we can't include it as mutants.
Well, because when they introduced Scarlet Witch, they didn't have the rights to her, so they had to make her not a mutant. They had no idea what the Sony thing a long time ago. Sony had like full control of those characters. There was no idea that they would ever share that or sell it.
Fox.
Or whatever it was.
Sony Spider-Man.
But like later on when they like started to look at that, then they said, okay, well like let's start to like potentially rewrite those characters. Like now if they do happen to introduce X-Men, maybe they can like bring her tie back into like having Magneto be the father or something and not be like Russian or whatever. Like they could certainly go a different way, but at the time that's all they knew.
I think they knew if not Iron Man 1, it was Iron Man 2. I think
maybe Iron Man 1 was like the test.
I think it was because if you look at like when they came out, like it was Iron Man and then Hulk, but that one didn't really like count at the time. But then it was Iron Man 2. There was nothing in between those. So I think there was Iron Man, then Iron Man 2, and then they knew because then it was Thor and Captain America came out, and then it went and then right to Avengers. So I feel like at Iron Man 2 they had definitely already knew. So like early on they knew they were going.
But do you think like when they pitched Iron Man 1 that somebody somewhere had like one of those boards with the pins and strings and like they had,
I'm sure.
Like it was just like two dudes that were like like a group like this where we're just like, oh shit, like, you know, all this like old content, you know, all the comics and like the story, and you were just like, how do we make it work? And they just like figured out like a good portion of it, not everything, because obviously things are still just exploding, but like they just had like a huge portion of it, and they're like, all right, I think a good part to start is like Iron Man. He's easy to absorb, like he's a metal dude. He doesn't necessarily have superpowers. Like, let's start with something like that.
And they didn't have one yet. Like they didn't. Did they make?
Yeah, he's never really been done.
The crazy thing is,
like they've done Hulk and stuff before, but
this was all thought out when it was still at Universal. It took until Iron Man 3 when they actually got bought out by Disney. And then they had to do Avengers 1, which was still Universal and Disney.
I don't know if it changed. I think that's when they started getting like some budget.
I still think.
I think the story was with the group. Like, I don't think they got new writers per se. I think like the original group that was starting to come up with it was just given like more tools when Disney was like, yo, let's do this. They were like, shit, like now we have a ton of money to actually go and do this stuff. Versus before, like they just were limited.
But what if you wondered, and if you go back to if Universal still had it, what do you think it would have gone further on if Disney didn't buy it?
I mean, if the movies make money, they'll figure out a way to keep pushing it. I mean, it's really props to like the writers, because like people are like, oh, Kevin Feige and Disney, and it's like, yeah, those guys are like producers and stuff, but it's like it's all like the hardcore like the nerds and like people that are like figuring out how these like strings connect, because it's not like all the people you would know their name, it's none of them. You know what I mean? It's like it's this like dark room group of people that are just like 8 hours a day, like their job for like months was just to like make this make sense. And like I feel like it's props to those guys for doing it. And like I feel like that would have happened Disney, Universal, wherever. If they were making money and they were gonna make more movies, they would have figured that out. I mean, with Disney, like I guess they have more power, but like Marvel's Marvel, regardless of who owned by. I mean, so I don't know, but I mean, it's hard to say. But like I said, the money speaks for itself. Like they're not gonna just kill a series that's like killing it. You know what I mean?
So, where it's at now, are you happy on how what is going further out in the future?
Hell yeah!
I mean, I think it's fucking insane right now.
Excited as shit.
I was gonna say I've never been so excited about movies. Like like anticipation for the next stuff. Like just like, oh my god, I can't wait. Like I've never had this much anticipation for stuff.
That's what's
crazy. What's
crazy.
Even better is like when you see it with the same group of friends, and they don't watch it separately.
It's so much better when you see
we
it
never
all
really
together.
watched them together though. Like,
we watched Venom. That's our first one.
I was gonna say we never really ever watched them together. Me and Scott.
I've
seen
me
the
and
most
Scott
with Tim and Michelle.
Yeah.
We've seen like most of them. I've seen a couple with Christian.
And then sometimes Christian comes with us, but yeah, we've seen almost like all of them.
I try to keep it
only
together.
not Brian.
Well, yeah, but that's just how it's always been.
No,
he came into it late.
Yeah,
Brian came
Venom.
into it late.
Yeah.
Venom was the only one that
I was like just
I'd
born
say
a few
all
years
four
ago.
of us would have been together.
Yeah, I'm like 5.
Brian's
No,
only
but he had
6
to
years
catch
old.
up. He had to catch up all the movies. Like me and Scott and Michelle would all see them, and then like Christian like would come to some of them. But like we were
cruising like opening
we
weekend.
saw
most of them.
Yeah, and then like Brian, like I figured, when did you start really watching them? Because you had to go back and watch all of them.
I saw.
It was like in the past couple years.
Like you probably
before I
watched
started getting into it with
but-
you guys, I had seen like Iron Man 1 and 2. I saw them in movie theater. Not with you guys, obviously.
Damn right.
Because F you guys. Yes, I think.
Like you've probably seen a couple of them here and there just to see them, but
I don't think I ever saw the Hulk or Thor or anything like that. I think I just saw the Iron Man 1 or 2. And then,
So what pretty much, Brian, this is a question for you. So what pretty much started off your curiosity about the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like what was that like starting point that like accelerated you to watch more?
Well, I wouldn't say there really was a point because I didn't really know there was all this bullshit when I saw Iron Man. I was just like, oh, a superhero, that's cool.
Like
Let me watch Iron Man 2.
I guess like when did you know that like there was more to it? Because you saw Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2. It's basically like any other movie plus a sequel. Like
Right.
the next movie you saw, was it like Avengers? And you were like, oh, okay, like damn, like I should have actually watched Captain America. Like that would have been like your turning point. Is like, oh, like okay, now I see that there's like a lot more people in
See,
this thing. Like
It's tough to say because at the time, I didn't know what the hell I was watching. I was just watching like another superhero movie, so I don't know.
Like watching Blade.
It's when I started getting into it with you guys, really. That like obviously you guys talked about it more, and like said stuff from the comics and said stuff that you guys had already knew from whatever source. I kind of want to go see all those original.
It took you forever to see the first Doctor Strange.
I just watched it within this past like year.
It took you so long to see that.
I think from all the conversations that we had, Brian really got more into it when Loki started because the TV series.
Yeah, Loki wasn't even the first show.
No, but like he got more into the universe when Loki started. I feel like because he kept asking us like, "Oh, this is the 4th episode. Looks.
What was the show?
I love this part.
Obviously, it was like the Daredevils, but like, what was the show before Loki that was like
Vision?
WandaVision
was that the very first like Marvel series one?
On Disney Plus? It was
well, if you
Shield.
don't count, if you don't count.
No, I'm saying on Disney Plus.
Marvel Shields.
On Disney Plus. Yeah, obviously it was like Daredevil.
Sure
it was like
it was Vision. It was Vision.
It was the WandaVision, but it was like the 4 Defenders one. Obviously came on Netflix way before that too. But I mean, like the first Disney Plus one was it WandaVision, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking right here. It was WandaVision.
It was WandaVision, then
Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then it was Loki. I mean, that was like a ton. But like that's another thing which is crazy. Like, do you
show to movie crossover? That's
so like,
crazy.
But like they have that avenue now because like Disney Plus, like you can't deny, literally was their answer to like Netflix just dominating. You know what I mean? Like. Like things are slowly moving. Like aside from COVID, this was like prior to COVID, they already had like this whole thing planned. It's like Netflix is dominating. Like people are like doing more subscription services. Like every freaking TV station has their own subscription services. Like Disney like came up with theirs, and like whether you agree with the subscription model or whatever, like it gave them like this massive platform that once enough people were on it, they were like, let's like take actual parts of these billion-dollar movies and like break off pieces of them and put them on this like cheap $10 a month platform. And like I think that idea was like kind of risky because like again, they're like big budget movies, you want to keep like always just a movie chain going, but at the same time like what they did with these shows and like having like basically like full movie budget shows and how awesome they really were, like I think that's insane. But like do you think like it's obviously it's working really well now, it's filling in gaps, it's adding hype to these characters, but do you think if like the whole MCU was shifted by like even like 3 or like 5 years back. So if like Iron Man 1 came out in like 2003 instead of 2008, like, and they were like, getting the same amount of steam that they've been getting, like, but like streaming really wasn't at that point. Like, do you think? But I don't know. I guess the question is like,
no. Well,
is
back then the movie theaters were way more popular than they are now. I mean, I feel like people would have obviously seen it that way rather than streaming.
Because I guess what I was trying to say is like, do you think the streaming like made a difference on the movies? But I guess the streaming literally was within the past like year, so it hasn't really changed like the movies per se. Because
I kind of going back to that question, I think it's more like do you feel like it makes a difference?
I was just gonna say.
No, no, but I feel like I'm like it made a difference. That's what you're trying to say, right?
I don't know really what I was trying to say. Like if it, like I said, if things shifted back, like obviously they wouldn't have made shows because they wouldn't have had a streaming service yet because it wouldn't have made sense to have one yet. So like, would the movies have been the same sequence without having the shows broken out? Because like now you're gonna have a show for like She-Hulk and like Moon Knight and all these like crazy characters that probably would never get their own movie. Do you think we just would have never gotten those because streaming like Disney Plus allowed them to make those? Or do you think like they already had them in mind and they were like, we're not really sure what to do with them? So it's like, do you think we would have just missed out on those completely if they were like back a little bit? You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm trying to say now?
Yeah, I think so. I think we would.
I think we would just not gotten
like more of a budget to make movies instead of TV series.
Yeah, like Moon Knight is like nasty, but like he probably wouldn't have done well as a movie because he's kind of like obscure, but like he's probably gonna kill it on Disney Plus. You know what I mean? Because of like what it is. So it's like, I feel like we never would have saw him if streaming wasn't a thing because he would have been like, no, let's push him off. Like Wanda, let's keep Wanda in the movie. She'll be kind of bad. Like let's not do a whole story. And I mean, her show was basically like a story arc, but like they might have like just kind of brought her down to like a different level or something. So I feel like we would have just not gotten those characters, and like even the Falcon thing might have been weird.
It creates sort of like a library you can basically watch from A to B without streaming, without like something to have all these movies on.
They do something that the movies don't. You know what I mean? Like
you have to go out of your way to buy it on like I don't know, the DVD.
So going to that, the whole reason I think that they did the TV shows, it was to fill in the gaps between the movies, because they would take a certain amount of time to make a movie, and then you'll just have to wait and be like, I really want that.
It screws up the schedule and stuff too.
Yeah, so basically, in that gap between the 2 years or 3 years, how long, whatever it takes to make a movie, they're like, we want to watch something Marvel, so they're like, let's make this 6-part episode to kind of entertain these fans and the side story of what it's going to lead up towards. That's why they wanted you to keep hyping up for the TV series so you can get ready for the movie. And you're like, oh, this is going to happen. And oh, this next one's going to happen. You know
it definitely builds for the movie.
Like they want to keep the train going.
It's also just an attestament, because like how good the shows are is an attestment that like they have enough people that can work on the shows while the movies are still in production. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, because the shows alone are like, even if you like WandaVision, like just
crazy. Yeah,
you can watch it by itself. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of stuff that if you didn't see anything else, it's going to be like kind of weird.
Yeah,
but just the show alone is just so good. Just like you said, just like the writing and the directing. It's like the full movie budget. You're like watching
a movie
style, like.
But it's like
but it's a show. It's just like
how far out, like how many movies do you think they already have filmed right now?
Oh, not many.
Well, filmed planned a lot, but
they already got like certain, like I would say 2 or 3 right now, because Morbius is done, but they need to edit certain things.
I mean, they're not they're because of VFX.
Doctor Strange, same thing.
Better they are. Yeah, Doctor Strange is done and filmed it. They're just like tweaking stuff. But like Guardians of the Galaxy is like filming like right now. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And there's already a release date.
Was it that one? It comes out the holiday one? Was it the holiday one? Because they said they were doing a holiday one too.
No, Guardians 3 is literally in production right now, like as we speak. I mean, not
May
like
of
tonight, but like
it comes.
Like it's filming right now because like that they have their schedule, and then they VFX.
Well, Ant-Man must be too, right?
Ant-Man must be in production too, yeah.
It has to be, because that's next year as well.
They did show the Stuntman shirt that showed Kang.
Yeah, I think they film within the prior year, because VFX is like usually only given like 9 months for the films to like do all this stuff. So like, I think they've only filmed, like, I don't know what the schedule is, but they probably have filmed whatever's gonna. They either have filmed or already are filming now anything that comes out this year and next year. So whatever that comes out to, that's probably all they have filmed. Beyond that, I don't think they have the time or the need to do that yet. You know what I mean? Like, because they're just
right now
they're pumping out like 7 shows on Disney Plus at the same time. Yeah. It's just like
Thor's probably almost done.
Right now, they just started filming the sequel to Captain Marvel, which is The Marvels.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous. Like,
that's next year. Well, because there's 3 movies, like 3 big movies.
But there's like a ton of shows too. Like.
Yeah. Well, I know. I'm looking at it. It's crazy.
Dude, I can't wait for Thor 4, dude. Love and Thunder.
Oh, I know. That's going to be
with
done.
Gore and stuff.
July, right? Well, if these dates are right.
So, all right. So going to that movie, I hope they introduce Null, because
Null. We talked about this, dude. Null is so new. If they introduce him as big as he is, they can't leave him be.
But
you know what I mean?
The thing is, they introduce a lot of new characters.
It'd be like,
now.
Here's Thanos, and then it's just like, man.
So right now they're gonna. So going back to the Doctor Strange trailer, they just introduced the new Captain America that's LGBTQ. She's a brand new character.
I didn't hear anything.
America Chavez.
It's not Captain America.
No, she is the LGBTQ version of her.
That's American Chavez.
She's American Chavez. She's in the Young Avengers, but she's not. She never takes up Captain America's
thing.
No,
but she's a different one from a different universe.
I know, but she's part of the Young Avengers. She's just like her own, like she's like the American, like stereotype, like red, white, and blue person. But like she's not like a Captain America follow up or anything like that. But still, yeah, if they're gonna introduce
no
in the movies, they introduce like relatable characters, and like the Doctor Strange is gonna have like the Illuminati and all this crazy stuff. Like Null is so far out there, especially since the Venom thing isn't like even.
Yeah, they haven't fully.
They
set
barely.
that up yet.
All they did was put a little dot in the MCU.
They really did.
That's literally all they've done.
That scene, I was like, what the.
So like, and Null
when
is.
they opened the movie, like the first sound was mip, and then that's how they
like
opened
Null.
the movie.
No,
I agree. Like Null is crazy, but like the battle that they do to take Null down, or like they basically just all lose. They all like die. It's so big for the MCU right now. Even where it is, they have so much more to do before they even touch Null, because they already have Kang. They already have like the Gore is coming. They have like a potential thing with Galactus. Like Null is not even. I mean, it's probably in their thoughts, but he's not. No way.
Christian's horny for some Null.
Which I mean, I love the character too, but there's absolutely no way. I would put money that he's not coming anytime soon.
So as of now, with your knowledge of what you've gained, what do you think is going to happen in the future?
Like in my life or in the
MCU?
In the future of the
fight scenes,
Marvel,
a lot of superheroes, bad guys,
like
good
you already
guys.
know that Kang's coming.
Let's pull it down back into like the most up to date thing we can talk about, which is like the Doctor Strange trailer,
Kang. Okay.
which is may or may not have to do with Kang. So the Doctor Strange 2 trailer potentially introduces Illuminati. Again, not confirmed. Everyone's like assuming, but like
I think it is. But
I'm pretty sure it is.
But
But again,
else.
we can't
So-
say it's confirmed. It's
Yeah,
they're
because
introducing
they're
Illuminati. Illuminati
Yeah.
could bring in both Fantastic Four and X-Men. Again, assumed, but like that alone already does these two massive things. And then in Doctor Strange, they have like Doctor Strange Supreme, the evil one. They have all the evil creatures. They have Wanda. They have like the Defender people. Like, there's already like a ton of crazy stuff going on. And that other character I was telling you, Tim, like Kaslan or whatever. He's like I'm pretty sure he's in the trailer. He's like the ragged kind of crazy guy.
He's the one that's like holding America Chavez. He's like grabbing her and like.
It's Kathlon or something like that. It's like only like 5 letters, like CTH.
Teflon.
It's like CTHLON. He's like a villain of Doctor Strange. He's like kind of like a random one-off kind of guy.
Well,
but he's very strong.
The only one I know that they were trying to introduce was like the Darkness or something like that. He was like, almost at the end of the trailer, he was like transforming into like a dark creature.
Well, that's like zombie.
I'm pretty sure
Strange,
that's. So I was telling Tim about the theory that we were looking at is like, so in the movie there's like the Defender Strange, which is like he's like part of like the police force for the Illuminati. So in an early trailer you see him trying to like get America Chavez from that creature, which I'm pretty sure is that name, which they're gonna have to explain it more, but like he's just like some beast demon thing, whatever. But I'm pretty sure that thing kills him and resurrects him as the zombie, because at the end you see a zombie Doctor Strange. And that's the zombie guy.
Another trailer too. There's another trailer shows like a zombie.
It's not like a different.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry to correct myself. It was actually Nightmare.
So he's rumored to be in it too, because in the beginning he talks about it being Nightmare. So that's a very big possibility that Nightmare could be in it too. But like, they haven't really said anything that would relate to that. It's still showing a ton of other stuff related to other people. But even if they bring a Nightmare, that's already like so many new characters and new things they're doing. Like the one thing that MCU does well is like they never lose you type of thing. Like
I don't think they're gonna go too crazy.
They introduce a ton of stuff without losing the casual fan. And if they go as hard as what people are assuming on this movie, they could start to lose people a little bit, because people are like, oh my god, who the hell is this guy? Or like, what is that guy? Like, this demon guy? Like, it's too much. It's too many like name drops that like, some of the name drops aren't gonna be bad, like even if it's just random. But like if they start name dropping like big people and expect people to be excited, they just won't be. So that's why it's like, as crazy as people think it's gonna be, I feel like it's going to be crazy, but like it's gonna be a really encased version of it that people can absorb, that don't know the comics. So like some of the theories get wild with Kang and all this stuff, and obviously Kang's coming, but like I have a feeling that he's gonna have such a small part in the movie, if any, just slowly leading into like the next movie and then the next movie after that, because he's like the long term. You're gonna see him develop more. So I don't know. I feel like Doctor Strange 2 is gonna be awesome, but it's not gonna be as wild as some people are predicting, because
I feel 30 cameo things.
It's just not like
so the only thing I really want, I hope they introduce is the mutants, because that's a big part of.
I agree.
So much of what Marvel represents is mutants were part of the universe. It's just they were been forgotten for so long.
You speak like you're a mutant. Like Chris has been oppressed his whole life because he's a mutant.
I was taking Wolverine, but
he's like fighting for the mutants' rights over here. And
he's like, our whole lives we've been trying to come into the spotlight.
Mutants' right activist.
Yeah,
but
I agree. Yeah. If the movie does anything aside from like the random villains, if it opens the Fantastic Four and X-Men, that would be like, that's all they need to do, and that's awesome. Like
I think that's all they would do, to be honest. That's what I think is gonna happen. Yeah. It's just gonna be bring in the X-Men a little bit, and the Fantastic Four they're already gonna do a movie. So that's like,
if they have like a little tie-in for that.
Yeah, I feel like almost like without a doubt, like some kind of Fantastic Four like Reed Richards thing's gonna happen, because they're already gonna make a movie. So I feel like
looking at the upcoming stuff for Fantastic Four and maybe a very future X-Men, do you feel like the role should be recasted to a new universe of Disney?
I feel like it's going to either way.
And it has to be. It kind of has to be at this point.
I don't. If they introduce X-Men, they're gonna do it in a multi-universal thing. I think they have every right, and I don't think if they do it right, people won't be mad either. That's the problem with like the recasting is like, oh, they just did it in a movie, whatever. Like if they introduce X-Men as like there's like a thing and like, oh, maybe it exists in our Earth, but it's being like suppressed, and like maybe Xavier like helps like open it up or whatever, and like actually brings X-Men like alive, the X gene and all the current people. Like every of like the main people are all gonna be like new actors, because by the time they get to it, it's gonna be like 2025 or something. Like none of the old people are gonna want to do it. They're all beyond that, and at that point,
he's the only one that can play Wolverine.
All right.
He's the only one.
Yeah, and he would be like the one that would be like, oh, it's like a really sick cameo, but like beyond that, he'll never reprise the role. I guarantee it.
So that's the cool thing about the multiverse, because they can bring back their certain characters for just a small role.
Yeah, which I agree is really
Here's
cool.
Your taste.
Which me and Tim were talking about. Like, I'm pretty sure that's what they're gonna do for Deadpool. There's gonna be like some scene where it's like, it's showing all the universes, and then it just goes to him like sitting on a toilet or something like that, and he's like, "What the heck?" And like that's just his like 1 second where he's like, "Oh, now he's in the MCU." Like that's all they're gonna give him, I guarantee.
Yeah, yeah. That for me, I feel like that's a fitting thing for.
That'll
fans.
be an end scene or something.
Yeah,
I think it could even be in.
It could be in the middle, but it would just be like, you remember I think it was in Guardians 2 with the Ego, when they're ripping through the dimensions. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah, when they're
was that Guardians? Or was that
Thor? They were time jumping. They time jumped like too far. Like
was that Thor or was that
they were going through?
Was that Thor or was that Guardians?
That was Guardians.
That was Guardians too. Yeah, it was Rocket and
You gotta rewatch things.
Yeah.
And the blue guy.
Oh my god. Yondu.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to get to Ego and they went too far. Yeah.
So like when they go through there and they see the Watchers, like that exact scenario, but it's like Deadpool. I get like it's gonna be something like that.
Well, it's gonna be easy because there's literally like a part of the trailer of the Doctor Strange where they're like the glass is breaking, and there's just like you look around, there's like all these different like dimensions. There's one that's a cartoon, like a little cartoon dimension. Like it's just gonna be like that. They're just gonna be like crashing through dimensions, and one of them just gonna be like Deadpool or something, and the whole multiverse.
Well, that's the cool thing. Like the whole multiverse getting introduced is a cool element, like in general, just because they can bring the Netflix
so cheap,
Marvel
but
series.
It's so crazy. Like
I know, because now it's like too easy for them.
That's
just
what I meant.
It's so
shit. It's so cheap because if you watch any or read any of the old comics, like it's literally like they use that concept to just fix whatever the hell they want. So like the concept is so cheap from like a writing standpoint, but like if you do it right, like it's still like super entertaining.
It's cool. Yeah, because like no one can die. It's like, oh my god, a main character dies. Like, nah, but this is the one over here.
That's what I mean. Like that's why it's like
it's just like
it's like really cool, but like if you think of it in that terms, it's like there's no
for
stakes.
A movie. Yeah, exactly. For a movie, I feel like it would bring down that.
Yeah, so like they're not gonna go
like a stake, like you said. Like if like Iron Man, like the weight that Iron Man's death had on everyone, and like from all the movies and that. If they were just like, oh, new Iron Man, like that, it just wouldn't have that same.
You can talk to your dad, but he's in like Earth 75. Like,
yeah, it wouldn't have that same emotional impact. Like as like a comic, it's still like you said, it's still like it works, but it's still kind of cheap. But it's fine. But like as a movie, that would just kill it. Like
but
I read some stuff. I don't know if you guys read the same thing. Yeah, like Bad Iron Man or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's the white one, the white armor one. It's like
so the thing is like
Supreme or something.
So much lore in the Marvel universe. It's like they take such a tiny element of characters and then bring them to the big screen, and we're like, wow, they took this small character and just like make it bigger.
That's part of it. That's part of the movie aspect of it.
But yeah, they like each character has like some sort of role they have to fulfill. But like, I don't know, to jump back into like the actual MCU, like. The idea of the multiverse getting so big is really cool, but it's really cool for me because I feel like that only makes the idea of hopefully what they continue to do with it, the idea of Kang even crazier. Is that like as they build this multiverse, if they do Kang correctly, Kang is just like the bigger the multiverse is, the more dangerous Kang technically is. And like if they continue to go that route correctly and like he's like trickled in here and there, and then like you start seeing his bigger and bigger scheme. Like it's gonna get so cool, and like you're gonna lose the focus on the multiverse, and you're gonna start focusing on him, which I think is like the goal. And eventually, hopefully, like there's some like that's the thing. It's like they can't really be like an Avengers film. Like they all can't fight him because like almost everyone can defeat him one-on-one. Like.
He's not physically strong.
He's not gonna sit in a fight and fight you. He like probably will never actually physically fight any of the characters. So it's like they can't really have an Avengers movie. So I feel like I saw a report that like there is actually no more like Avengers movies.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh, that sucks. But then I was like thinking about it, and I was like, if Kang is truly the guy, they can't really be an Avengers movie. Like you can have team up movies where it's like, oh, there's like Doctor Strange is with Wanda, whatever. But it could just be like Doctor Strange's movie. Like that's what this is, Doctor Strange 2, and Wanda's just in it. Like I feel like we're gonna have a lot of pairings or groupings, but we're not gonna have like a collab movie because it doesn't really make sense. Like they've kind of done that with these big bads, but like the new big bads, even like Galactus, you can't. What are they all gonna do? Just sit on the planet and he just eats the planet or something like the new baddies that they're introducing just can't be like physically fought. So. That's what blows my mind. It's like how they're gonna even like tackle the fights or like beating these people. It's gonna all be like weird strategies and insaneness.
Chess match.
Oh, so it's so crazy. Cool. Like you look at it and like all the movies you look at all the movies and you're like, oh my god, they're doing the same storylines and events as comics. Because if you look like for like Avengers, and just like you're explaining, like they have like other characters meet each other. It's like comic books. Like they'll eventually have them meet each other in an event of their own.
Yeah, no, that's what's cool. It's like the people writing these movies are basically writing their own comic books just in film version, like because comic books have like meetup or like combination comics all the time where it's like a ton of writers actually write the same book, and it's kind of like what they're doing with like the Avengers and stuff. But
the only thing you can ever get is like Inhumans and Avengers and X-Men fighting against each other, because that's just a whole mess.
I mean, maybe eventually, but that's the thing too. Like Black Bolt, who's an Inhuman, is technically in the Illuminati. So it's like, but then also Namor is in the Illuminati.
I don't think either of them are gonna be in it.
I can't wait for you.
Technically, they've already had Inhumans show, which was in the same universe as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and technically Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is in the MCU because of Coulson and all that stuff. So technically the Inhumans are in the universe, and there is a rumor that the guy who played Black Bolt, Anson whatever, like is on some call sheet of like some detective work somebody did. So like he may have like a weird appearance, which his appearance is kind of funny because he literally doesn't talk. Like that's his power. His power is speaking. So it's like if he has a role, he literally just gonna be standing there, which would be kind of funny.
His special power is not being able to speak.
No, his power is like does talk.
When he makes like the littlest of noise, it's like a shockwave. So if he screams at you, he's like throwing a nuke at you. He's literally like he's insanely powerful, but it's like via his like.
So he's gonna have a lot of control, is what you're trying to say.
He can't talk.
Just think of him as Cyclops.
If he looks at anything,
he's like Cyclops with his mouth.
He's gotta hold it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
So,
he would.
the crazy thing.
He dwarfs Cyclops dramatically, though. Like, Cyclops is stupid. He's like the worst freaking X-Men ever.
It's just crazy.
He leads the X-Men. He can't even control his power. Stupid idiot.
But his brothers are stronger than him.
I know. That's what he always blew my mind. Like, why is he leading the X-Men? He's the worst one. He does one move and he can't even control it. Like, dude, practice. Go in the battle vault and practice a little bit. Come on, dude.
So going back to so Agents of Shields, because I'm the one that like mostly watched all the series.
Yeah, I only watched like 2 seasons or something.
Oh, yeah,
So
I don't know.
That one
they
had like
basically
Ghost Rider and shit too, right?
Yep. So
that's the problem.
So
is,
basically,
all those
so
characters
basically
technically exist somewhere in the universe because they were part of that universe. But I don't know.
basically throughout the whole season, they did connect with the Marvel Cinematic Universe
A bunch of times,
but then
yeah.
they weaned off to their own thing, so it didn't connect. And later on, they didn't mention any of the characters or anything.
Yeah, I mean, to bring back up what you were just talking about, I did read somewhere that the guy Kevin Feige was saying that like there are elements of the show that were meant to just be for the show. So like that's what's kind of weird is like parts of the show are canon and like others aren't. That's kind of weird, but like I don't know. Like obviously if they have like Ghost Rider and stuff like that, like they have insanely powerful characters like in the universe, and it's like, well, where were they during the Thanos fight? Like he would have helped a lot. Like that's the problem is like they can't introduce too many characters because then whenever there's something wrong, it's like, well, where was that guy? Like
All right. So rumors for Agents of Shields that Secret Invasion, they're gonna introduce what's her name? Daisy. Quake?
From like Mario.
oh, the main girl.
Yeah, that she's gonna be in it. So they're gonna canon it again.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I heard that too. See, that's a. It just doesn't end because like you have this whole Illuminati, Kang, multiverse thing, and it's like Secret Wars, which is technically like universe versus universe, but then at the same time, like
Daisy.
Half this universe could be Skrulls. Like that's like
they're already doing.
That's like its own thing. It's like so crazy. Like Captain Marvel in that movie will go more into it, but it's like there's so much happening at the same time. It's like it's
there's so much we could talk about, but I think we should save it for another day.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
It's definitely getting a little long.
We're getting along, so I don't know. I mean, that was kind of like. What?
Let me put at a certain part that I wanted to say before we ended it.
I go.
So you know about the Darkhold with Scarlet Witch? Mm-hmm. They actually showed it on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when Ghost Rider came into the series. He tried. The whole reason why he came into the series was because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. found the Darkhold, and he came into it, and it's like, what are you guys doing? That's mine. And he eventually gets it and brings it back to his universe, and that's it. Like you don't see it anymore until Scarlet Witch comes out of nowhere. Just a little knowledge.
I know, it's just
Chris
I forgot
hitting us with the knowledge.
I forgot like they have access to like a bunch of these characters already, which is insane. Like, and like if Galactus really ends up making an appearance and like he has to like be accompanied by Silver Surfer. So it's like that's a whole nother element. And like Silver Surfer has like a relationship with Adam Warlock. So it's like maybe there's like some other I don't know. Anyways,
so the whole theory of Eternals, what I think is that the Celestials, they're basically planets that the Eternals are trying to protect, but what I feel like in the
Galactus like eats planets and stuff. Yeah. It's the perfect. It's a perfect segue. Eternals is a perfect segue for him to come in.
It's going off of one of the other comics.
But they can't,
that's what I told him.
If they want to do him correctly, they have to follow the comics a little bit, and they have to get the Fantastic Four in. They have to get Silver Surfer in because that's literally part of his story. And if they do that, they need to have a little bit more story with like the Eternals and like Arishem and those guys, because like technically like the Celestials can fight Galactus. Like I don't know. I think they're gonna get there, but that's like the Skrulls, Kang, fucking Galactus. Like it's so much more. Like there's so much more than what they've already done, which is crazy. I feel like they've done so much, and there's
even
so much
X-Men's
more.
own universe.
Yeah, I don't even
X-Men
know.
is like its own universe. Like you can create a series off X-Men.
They could literally keep it in its own universe, which would be cool because that would just fuck stuff up. That would f stuff up. Damn it.
No, that's all right. It's an hour in.
Yeah.
Scott, this was your idea. I didn't say that.
I know. All right, we'll cut that part out. Anyways, yeah, that was long. It's just a random blurb of thoughts around our MCU because we all thoroughly enjoy the MCU, but we'll be sure to be back talking about it more because, as these shows and movies come out, our minds will continue to be blown and the theories will continue to blow up as well. So,
as always, support the boys on YouTube. Subscribe. That'd be the best thing you could do. Socials, Instagram, Twitter.
do it.
All the socials, TikTok, stuff like that. Follow us. Like our stuff. Comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We love you. Road to 100.